This picture, by Tim Heaton, was taken west of South Witham and is recognised by most to be the start of the River Witham. In many summer months, only a small trickle is achieved through South Witham. By the time it gets to North Witham, however, things start to pick up, with what appears to be a small and regular flow. Leaving the village to the north on Church Street, the road fords the river for most times of the year. Arriving at the attractive and industrial town of Grantham, birthplace of Isaac Newton and Margaret Thatcher, our river passes a mainly urban area before reaching Sedgwick Meadows. On to the very pleasant Wyndham Park. But the first visit was after spring rain, swelling the river. The Witham flows nearly entirely across Lincolnshire during its 82-mile journey. It is probably one of the lesser-known UK rivers. Situated just a few miles outside of Lincoln, our river skirts the historic and thriving village of Bingham. Here we see a swollen river again from heavy spring rain. But, moving a little later in the year, things take on a more usual, gentle pace. Just a little way along, we pass by the small village of Auburn, where at this spot was the site of a watermill, dating from around 1076, until becoming derelict in the 1960s, and sadly demolished in 1968. Seen here is the River Brant, which at this point has become significant enough to swell our river considerably. A short distance from here it joins the River Witham, taking it in a more northerly direction towards the city of Lincoln. Reaching the southern suburbs, there is for the moment still some oasis of green space and a certain tranquility. However, it's not too far before things change, passing through a mix of residential and commercial buildings before reaching the city centre. Reaching the centre of Lincoln and the historic Brayford Bull area, there is a mix of modern and historic architecture. I believe it's fair to say Lincoln has become a more vibrant place since the arrival of the university. Heading off in an easterly direction of the pool, things change. The waterway now becomes the Fosse Canal, reputedly built by the Romans to link Lincoln to the tidal Trent, passing through Saxelby and culminating at Torksey. The River Witham exits the Brayford Pool at the western end. It passes under the High Bridge, otherwise known as the Glory Hole. Built around 1160 makes it possibly and definitely the oldest to support intact buildings. Passing through the centre brings us to the industrial eastern area of the city. It once was home to heavy engineering, which Lincoln was well known for. But sadly, little remains. Stamp End Lock is the first of two locks between Lincoln and Boston. Heading east along the bike track sees us heading back towards a more rural scene. At this point, we pass under the recently built Eastern Bypass, opened in December 2020. The old railway station at Washington shows it to be the first sizable village adjacent to the river. It isn't long before coming upon 5 Mile Bridge at Fiskerton, the only footbridge crossing the river between Lincoln and Bardney Lock. Not to be confused with Fiskerton on the River Trent. Along this point, the original course of our river took it through the settlement of Short Ferry. It then meanders back to rejoin the current course just beyond Bardney Lock. Bardney is a village well known for its sugar beet factory, seen here just beyond Langr Bridge. It is the first road crossing between Lincoln and Boston. I'm old enough to remember a small pontoon passenger ferry, linking the White Horse Inn at the end of Dunstan Fen and the Riverside Inn at Southbury. At Dogdyke there is one of many land drainage stations, but this one is fully restored and open to visitors on certain days of the year. The surviving beam engine is powered by steam on the open days and is thought to be the country's oldest steam-driven scoop wheel, still in its original position. Further details at the end of the video. The station is located within earshot of RAF Coningsby, where amongst other squadrons it is the home of the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, and if you are lucky, you may see a fly past of one of their display aircraft. Sitting on the west bank of the river is Chapel Hill, a small village playing host to a marina and the beginning of what is known as the Kyme O. Beyond South Kyme, the waterway is then known as the River Slee. Partially restored, is navigable once again for a few miles. We soon come upon Langr Bridge. Built in 1909, the bridge replaced the chain ferry, which at that time gave the hamlet the name of Langr Ferry. Just before Boston, Anton's Gout Lock accesses the Witham navigable drains, which can be navigated with care for suitable craft. The River Witham ceases to be non-tidal at the Boston Grand Sluice Lock. Built in 1766 to alleviate flooding and help drain the fens, thus enabling over 110,000 acres of land being reclaimed for agriculture. It is now a Grade 2 listed building. St Botolph's Church is probably the most notable landmark in Boston. Known locally as Boston Stump, it stands proud adjacent to the river and can be seen for many miles across the fens. After the Grand Sluice, our river becomes known as the Haven. Boston does still have a small fishing fleet of around 26 vessels, and at one time it was the second largest port in Britain. Active to this day, it handles a variety of cargo and commercial goods. Celebrating the Pilgrim Fathers, a further structure has been erected at Scotia Creek, with a viewing platform and seating that graphically depicts their journey to the New World. As it finally reaches the Wash, much of which is salt marsh and mudflats, Many thousands of wildfowl and wading birds are supported.